Rain in Utah, and it's what's your best form of debating against presuppositionalists? JC, I didn't know if maybe you want to take this if you're familiar with presups. I have a lot to say, so I'll hold off for a second.
I think just debating a presuppos, well, debating anybody, I would say the Socratic method is the tried and true way. I think that is the light and the way. I'd say Socrates has got one up on me on that one. Yeah, but I want to hear what you have to say specifically about presuppositionalists. Like, what's
well, Rain, what's your you kind of lay us out, I guess, your thought process here.
Well, hi there. First of all, hope you guys are doing awesome.
Doing great.
I'm seeing
chilling with Jesus
right now.
Very blessed.
Look, hell is frozen over. It's snowing where I'm at in Georgia, which doesn't happen, and I'm sitting next to Jesus. So it's awesome for me. So I'm happy.
It's nice and sunny here in Jerusalem.
I tuned in today and I was like, oh my God, I'm looking at two fucking Jesuses right now. This is the best thing ever.
Thank you.
But good. I'm glad you guys are doing well. I don't know. So Jmike, I mean, I'm going to bring out the devil's name, but I've seen you debate Darth Dawkins a couple times and those types of presuppositionalists. And I listened to it a lot. And I just wondered to myself, like, what are points? What are like really good debating techniques and just really good points that you can use to how to kind of break down this very strange argument? Because I'm very new to debating. I actually learned from watching Talk Heathen, the Atheist Experience, and just kind of all the above, and was like, oh my gosh, I want to know how to think critically like this and get way better at this. Not just like I'm right and you're wrong type of thing. It's just I want to be prepared, especially in the world that we live in today. Mm-hmm. I think people should know really good debating techniques and things that they can look up on their own time. Like I literally have a pen and pad right now. Like, what are some good ways to do this?
So I guess I have a lot to say, and it's for me. One route that I wouldn't want to spend too much time on because it gets into like propositional logic and the entailment from like what their position is, which goes into like that everybody knows God exists. And so those are points that I don't think presupposition takes seriously, even though it's actually a logical commitment that they have. My thing, better yet, to say about it is you have to point out first and foremost that it's literally a howling of begging the question. So, I mean, to state that you couldn't have the claim is going to be that you can only have intelligibility if and only if the Christian God exists. Okay. And when you ask how you know that, right, it's some revelation through the text, which would be circular, revelation through the God, which I don't know how you would know. And so it all comes down for me to say that the person who's invoking, like you couldn't have any intelligibility of facts in the world without the Christian God. They don't know any better to solve skeptical, what are called like, problems with solipsism or real world skepticism. The mere fact that you have some revelation from a being doesn't actually entail that you have a revelation from said being. It could just be some being that wants to masquerade as the Christian God and reveal the information. It could be the case that it is Yahweh and it wants the person to know every true proposition as actually being false, right? It would have it in all of its power to do that. And the basis here is that you are only using your phenomenal states, right? Your mental states. You have to decipher that the revelation is actually coming from a deity, right? And so there's no like justification. It's just a belief, right? It's just, I have this belief and I believe it very, very strongly. There's no actually justification. What would be successful, right, for the presuppositionalists to do, because in virtue of what they're saying, which is that you can't have intelligibility without the Christian God, or intelligibility exists if and only if the Christian God exists. What they need to supply, right, instead of going into channels and saying, present me your worldview and I'll show you why it doesn't work, you can kill all those views with one stone by delivering what's called a deductive a priori argument, right? So this would just be an argument where the premises are true, the structure is valid, and it concludes that God exists, and the entailment of a contradiction, or to say the antithesis of that, which would be that God does not exist, couldn't be the case in virtue of that successful argument. But what you'll see with presuppositionalists is they don't offer you an argument, right? They just want to say your TV's broken, right? Therefore, my TV works, which isn't even an argument. So I go long-winded there, but the fact that if you came over and we drive to my house, right, and you're saying my worldview is broken, right? I'm thinking that's like, we drove to my house and you said my TV doesn't work, and I'm like, okay, let's go to your house because you're telling me that you got like this big package of sports package on your TV or whatever it is, right? Like you have all the channels, and I drive to but you won't even let me get in the car to drive to your house to see if your TV works because you don't want to actually defend it or provide the argument.
Yeah.
So the problem that it is it won't matter, right? Like you don't have to. Nobody has to die on a hill for a presuppositionalist. You could take any view you want, right? You could just say like, I'm a naturalist, I'm not a naturalist, I'm an idealist, or I'm a physicalist. You can take whatever position and just say you've already contradicted yourself. That doesn't substantiate the claim that they're making that you can only have intelligibility if the Christian God exists. That has all of its work ahead of it. So if you say something like it's impossible to the contrary, then supply the argument that makes the contrary impossible, right? Don't just merely state it, right? What if I just said I went and I smoked a joint, right? And naturalism revealed itself to me that it's true. It's the same. It's on an epistemic par. It's the same exact thing, right? So
yeah,
that's my soapbox. But there's a lot of angles.
I mean, fantastic. Honestly, like that was great. It's just like, and the other thing too is like I hear a lot. What I've heard a lot of them say is, I have gotten revelation through God's creation. It's like, well, wouldn't you need a God to reveal itself, to reveal that it created itself, or revealed its creation through its creation by revealing itself? Like, wouldn't you need something to prove to people or show to people that saying like, hey, God revealed himself through creation. Here's the God that I'm talking about that revealed himself through this.
Well, and revelation is necessarily first person too, right? So I don't know how that has motivational force to anybody else that you had a revelation, right? How does that help me? What does that do for me?
Exactly. It's like if I was walking in the woods and I was like, oh my God, there's Bigfoot. I'm gonna go tell everybody that Bigfoot's there. Okay, sweet. Hey, guess what, everybody? I found Bigfoot. This is awesome. He's out there. Well, how do you know that you saw him? Well, hey, I just, I saw him that I saw him. He revealed himself to me. I don't think he knew that I saw him, but, I saw him, and you got to take my word for it.
Well, and let me add this. Let me add this real fast to that, right? What set of observations could you have, right? You could look at anything in the world. Is there any set of observations a person could have where they couldn't attribute it to a God? Doesn't it seem like any set of observations that anybody makes, they could contribute that to the revelation of a God, right?
Right.
Yeah, right. So the idea there is that how in the hell do we know to interpret the intentions of the being if we don't have access to the speaker, right? If I don't have access to the God and you're saying it's revealed to you, right, through special revelation or through the Bible, right? Like that doesn't leave, it still could follow that something is just fucking with us. It's just like, I just feel like messing with people today, giving them something to argue about, and I'm just going to masquerade as Yahweh today, right? And reveal this to these beings. What's the contradiction in that view?
Oh,
I see no contradiction.
Exactly. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So
it was a very strange thing to me. And go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I keep cutting you off. My point, I guess, is like when anybody could use any set of experiences and attribute that to the revelation, and I have no access to that, right? I can just say I don't have that experience. I don't know that God exists. And this is, I said I wasn't going to go into this, but I guess I will. There's this aspect of, they cite Romans 1:20, which is like that no man is without excuse, right? That it's instilled within our hearts. Romans 2:15 about like the moral code, right? And they use these types of things to like say that you do know, right? You suppress it. But like if it's the case that,
which is ridiculous.
So this is the way I look at it. If you, and this is proposed by, this isn't like my idea or anything like that, but there's some really smart people, Alex Malpass and people out there that have some really good ideas on presuppositionalism. And for me, it's like, if you told me like if you had a refrigerator and that everybody in the world knew that refrigerator existed or something, if I go around the street and I ask somebody like, hey, do you know that this refrigerator exists? And they say no, like, just definitionally, that thing cannot exist, right? The entailment was that everybody knows it exists. So if I find an example of somebody, the logical entailment is that that thing doesn't exist because it was defined as everybody knowing it. And so we find one example, we've literally just contradicted the view. It can't be true. So when you say God, everybody knows God exists, and I just say I don't know it, right? And then they go, well, how do you defend that you don't know it? Well, I take knowledge to be justified true belief. I don't even have a belief in the proposition, which is like the most crucial part of, even if we disagree on our definition of knowledge, belief's going to be really crucial, right? And I don't even believe the proposition, right? So then it just follows that God can't exist, because in order for that God to exist, everyone would have to know it exists. In virtue of one person not knowing it exists, that thing does not exist in this world. It can't.
Exactly. And it's like telling something what they believe too. It's like, you believe this and I know you believe it. It's like, you can't tell people that. You can't do that. Like, I used to be a Christian. I grew up born again Christian my whole life. And even when I was in there, I would look at this stuff and be like, how could I possibly know without knowing that something exists that hasn't revealed itself in any way? Like, it's like if I was let's say I was writing a book and I was designing a character and I was telling this person that this character was real, and I was just defining it into existence.
Yeah.
And then trying to make this person believe that this thing is real, like, it doesn't make any sense. And the more I listen to these types of arguments with them or against them, I'm like, how do you guys do this every day? How do you believe in this every day and try and get other people to believe in your precepts? That whole word's hard for me to say sometimes. And
well, what's powerful to them is
when you can't back it up.
Well, I think what's powerful to them, if I'm trying to get in the shoes, is this idea of ultimate, right? Having this ultimate foundation, right? Which that just presupposes like a certain view on knowledge, right? Like which like you could be called a foundationalist view of knowledge, right? Like it assumes some category where somebody could just disagree. Like, look, I don't need an ultimate thing there. That's not required in my worldview. But there's a point to be made. Like, I have there's nothing I don't need an ultimate definition. I'm a subjectivist, like moral subjectivist. Or let's go, I guess health is probably the better one to get less in the weeds, but I don't need to know what health is defined as purely and ultimately for me to know what states I prefer over another state, right? I don't need to have ultimate knowledge to know of how I can interact in the world and have results, right? We look at Newtonian mechanics or things like this where it has application, yet is fundamentally wrong on how you're viewing its application in physics, right? So the idea of this ultimate knowledge without application, or that you would have unintelligibility, it's clearly incoherent, because that's the world we all live in. We all live under pragmatic limitations and not knowing fully, but it doesn't stop anyone from making progress, and it definitely isn't solved by positing some God that instantiates it. I don't see why I couldn't just say it's instantiated by something that's mindless. It makes no sense to me. But.
Exactly. And it's almost like a created reality in their own minds at the same time, by saying you can't have a reality unless you have this ultimate thing creating the reality that you experience. And it's like, but I'm experiencing reality right now, and I've never been demonstrated or shown that there is something that created that ultimacy. Like, so yeah. Where are you coming from? Like, what reality do you live in that is separate from mine, to where I can observe and see and observe that there's nothing there yet that I've been shown evidence of, when they're like, it sure is, it's here.
Well, and I would say before we move on to other callers, I would say I start out small. If you talk to a precept and they're not just being entirely disingenuous, which I've had really good conversations with presuppositionalists before. Just ask them, because this is my genuine consideration, is that if you think my worldview, if I picked out like 20 people and you said all of our worldviews are wrong, in virtue of the impossibility of the contrary, all that's telling me is that not P isn't true, P is true, right? And not be can't be true. Like it's impossible. So give me the deductive argument that makes that the case. Show me like how show me how my worldview, like, or instead of like trying to show me how my worldview is a squared circle or whatever, just show me how your worldview is actually the one. Give me the argument. And 9 out of 10 times, because they don't have the argument, they don't give anything. It's just beg the question. It's the game of begging the question. And you'll tap out of that eventually. It's just only so much you can handle. But we do appreciate your call, Rain, and I enjoy talking about this. I haven't talked about presups in a while, so it's been a minute. But hopefully my rambling gives you something to think about.
No, dude, you did not ramble at all. Like, I was prepared to just sit back and sip my coffee and be like, "Yep, I'm here to learn today." And you know what? You taught me a lot of great things, and gosh, I love listening to you guys. I love listening to everybody that has knowledge for me to gain and just be better and just learn how to do this stuff. And, you know, thank you so much for taking my call.
Hey,
I'll let you guys move on. See you later, Jesus. See you later, Jmike.
Thanks, Rand. I'm sure there's stuff we can learn from you as well. I think everybody can learn stuff from anybody. So just depends on what you're passionate about. But Jesus, what do you think about the what do you think about the presups?
You know, I don't do much debating. I tend to just stick to parables, you know, stories, allegories, things like that, and not get too much into trying to change anybody's mind. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's not everybody's cup of tea, and I completely get it. And that cup of tea, the presup cup of tea, is it's like a week old tasting cup of tea, so it doesn't go down smooth.